What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Game Dev Unchained, the number one game development podcast about game development and the lifestyle thereof. I am your host, Brandon Pham, and with a special guest, Adrian Krion. How you doing, Adrian? How you doing, Adrian? How you doing?
I'm good.
So
There
this
you
is
are.
part of the podcast where we have a guest such as yourself introduce yourself to our listeners, viewers out there, who you are, where you've been, and where you're heading.
Hey, yeah. So my name is Adrian. I'm the founder and CEO of Spielworks. We're the makers behind products like Wombat, the gaming wallet, and OnePlay, the game rewards platform. And yeah, I'm happy to be here and talk to you about, I hope, I guess, the role of blockchain and NFTs in gaming and how we're contributing to this.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot about this. I think the past 2 years kind of sped things up with the pandemic and everything, and so kind of just to give us a little favor out there for listeners who don't understand this technology. We all think at this point heard of it and kind of understand the significance of it, sorta. But like I think the details of it is kind of really foggy. So if you don't mind, kind of just conceptually, what is blockchain? What is NFT?
Yeah, let's start with blockchain. So, to me, I think the best way of explaining what blockchain is basically saying that when the internet was invented and brought into place, right? It's this decentralized infrastructure through which we can exchange all kinds of formats and data, right? But the only thing that we can't exchange or send or transfer through the internet before blockchain is anything of value, right? So we can't transfer value. And this is what blockchain basically fixes because it allows us, anyone, to have things, to own things, to transfer things, to manage things that are scarce on the internet. You know, files aren't scarce, data is not scarce. You can copy it, and then you have it multiple times, right? But things on the blockchain you can't just copy. They're only there once. If you say they're only there once, right? So that's conceptually kind of what's interesting about blockchain. It makes data immutable, right? So you can't change it. So, and with that, actually, NFTs are objects which are stored on this blockchain, and these objects have individual IDs, right? So you can tell them apart. You can tell apart one of the other, and that is basically it, right? That's what an NFT is. It's a database entry in this decentralized database that a blockchain is essentially, and it says this person, this account, this address owns this individualized NFT. And now what's interesting is what you can do with that. And I guess we'll get to that in a second. But from a conceptual point of view, that's it. It's a very simple thing. It's a very simple concept, right? The simplicity of it probably makes it so powerful.
Yeah, definitely. I think the idea of owning something is very exciting because digital has always been a hot ground for uh, for piracy or at least like there's like it's open for at least copies, right? There's no original digital content before this whole thing began. I think one of the main questions I do have is like, all right, so obviously there are a lot of individual content and areas where it's just kind of in its own universe, right? So let's say it's a mobile game, let's say it's AAA game, whatever the case. So how does this information be shared throughout different? Is it there yet, or is it just restrained to the gaming content that you're currently working in?
So generally, you can use NFTs and blockchain for anything, right?
Right.
Rather than storing something on a centralized database on a server that somebody runs, and you have to trust this person or this company to run that server and not to manipulate the data on it, right? you basically just store the same type of data, meaning this could be game items, and kind of track ownership of the game items and also track scarcity of these game items. Now you can store them on the data on a database that's called the blockchain, right? And the good thing is that at least for public blockchains, anyone can see what's going on the blockchain. So anyone can see that there is only a limited number of item XYZ. Maybe there's just one. Maybe there's supposed to be 200 of those, right? And then you can actually track them and you can see, okay, there's actually 200 of those. You can also track when ownership changes of these things, right? And that basically you can do that with anything. So that's also a reason why it became so popular in the digital art scene, right? Digital art always had this problem that like what is digital art, right? It's an animation, a picture. So essentially, it's mostly a file, right? And obviously, you can copy the file, and then who owns the real thing, like the original, right? So what you had typically with digital art is kind of a paper certificate that would certify that you're the owner, the buyer, and the owner of this original thing, of the right of the right thing, of that you're the owner, right? And that means that if you're a gallery, you can actually expose it, right? You can show it to people. You can take money for showing this to people. And so that's how this became popular. This concept of NFTs became popular with digital art, specifically last year when people auctioned his everyday's, yeah, let's say collection through Christie's and made a lot of money, and that was cool. And ever since, people started thinking, okay, what is this? Why is this so cool? And now we have a ton of things. We have Bored Apes and crypto punks, right? And we have a ton of games where right now it's mostly more valuable items. It's not like typically all the items that are NFTs, but we're getting there. There are ecosystems where basically any item in a game is an NFT, and anybody can track ownership of these NFTs. Anybody can trade them if they have them, and anybody can manipulate them if they own these NFTs. And with manipulate, I mean like kind of legal stuff, like not like unknown stuff, right? But there's the thing of upgrading or merging or blending NFTs and all kinds of things. So we can get to the weeds of that, but yeah, for now, I hope that answers your questions. Basically, the items that are being represented as game items, these are stored, or part of like their ideas being stored on a blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, we go back to the early days of gaming. We go to World of Warcraft even. There were people with multiple accounts, and they're selling those individual accounts because they were all nerfed up. And I mean, not nerfed. Nerf is the opposite, but like super powerful avatars with all these weaponry or costume or whatever combination of things that was deemed valuable, and people were just selling basically those accounts. So like gaming and NFT, to me, it always seems like probably very natural kind of partnership, right? I think people, I mean, we've kind of done this with downloadable content at first. Mobile have always kind of led this path. And with downloadable content, it always been like trying to get as much, upgrades and stuff that you can with loot boxes and things like that, right? So I mean, when people hear loot boxes, they have like this horrified look, because there are correct ways of doing it and wrong ways of doing it. And I think with the world of NFT and blockchain, they're not completely independent from that, right? There's going to be bad uses and good uses, but
Of
overall,
course.
I think it is like an extension for a lot of game developers and gamers who want to have the original. I think people who are the most confused, or at least who still don't get it or resistant to it, are people who are kind of somewhat resistant to the idea of what art value is. Like, so if someone wants to pay for millions of dollars for an original piece of art versus a printed version, right? I mean, that really just boils down to that. Do you value the original version, or does it matter if it just looks the same and you can put it on your wall, right? So obviously there's certain types of people that do see value, and I think we're at a point where that at least as a general audience appreciate that, you know, original piece of art is valuable, and now we're just transferring that kind of thinking into the digital world, which totally does make sense, right? Like you said, there hasn't really been a stamp or an ability to say a digital art is original, and having this type of technology that can track, you know, its movement in the digital world is incredibly useful. And I think let's dive a little deeper, if you don't mind. Like when talking about integration in games, like can you kind of highlight some scenarios here where you can see in different spaces? I know you're primarily in the mobile market, but like you are a game developer, right? At least being able to kind of foresee how this technology can be applied for the mobile market, I guess in this case AAA market, right? And of course a lot of these free to play, right? If you can kind of highlight these applications and use cases, I think it will help paint a picture of what this technology can do for the industry.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll start out with an anecdote, because I mean, when I studied, that was like some almost 20 years ago. But I obviously was playing a lot of games. I always play, like all the time, right? And back then, I think that was around when Diablo 2 was a thing. All right. I love this game. And
Yeah.
me and my friend, if I used to share my flat with a friend, and we're like playing these games, and we're like, how cool would it be if you could take gold from Diablo and like somehow convert that into, well, credits in kind of this racing game or whatever, and just buy a better engine for your car from this gold that you have, that you found, that you grinded for in Diablo 2, right? Simply because it's more effective for you to grind Diablo 2 than grinding whatever. I think it was a nice 2 back then. And then grind that, right? So I mean, in a way, people might say that this is like pay to win, right? But it's literally like I mean, in the free to play space, that's like very common nowadays, right? You have to buy a ton of packs in order to have all of your cards completed, and then only you can start playing for real, right? Like in, I don't know, Clash Royale or whatever, right? So that thing that we had in mind, like that must have been 2003 or 2004 or something, that is slowly becoming a reality, right? So that is one thing that I find really fascinating about blockchain, that you can actually transition things that are of value in one game into another game, and you can reuse them in one way or another there, right? And there's maybe another anecdote, which might be a good intro to that. When free to play became a thing, right? And everybody was playing. I was playing O game back then, and then later I was playing Travian, like these browser free to play games, right? That was very stressful, right? You always had to save your fleet, you had to like set your alarm for 3 a.m. and then get up and save it and send it away, right? So that it was safe for the night. But after a few years, you kind of get fed up with that. There was no like protection kind of thing, right? So you had to like manually do it. And then after a few years, this gets very tiring and you want to stop playing. And then what you do, as you said, what you would probably try to sell your account, right? Because there's no other way of, well, cashing in some of the effort that you put in, right? And so I was trying, after like 3 years of playing O game, I tried to sell my account on eBay. And obviously I got banned, right? for even trying. And it was so frustrating that I said, I will never, ever touch O game again, right? And then a similar thing happened to me in Travian, when that was a few years later, when I was traveling with my brother and we were playing from the same mobile hotspot, right? And then they banned both of us because apparently we were multi-accounting, which was obviously not the case, right? It was just two accounts that used to play from different IPs, and suddenly they started playing from the same IP, which is kind of crazy to believe that this is multi-accounting. But yeah, that's what they did. And there was no appeal, right? And both of us had spent like 50 euros in there each, right? Or something like that. And it was ridiculous that you get banned. And then you lose everything, right? And that was so frustrating. And ever since, I never played Travian again, right? So you wouldn't ever touch any of these games again because that something like that happened to you. And this is something that I think, like these kinds of anecdotes, and I think that anyone who has been playing games, mobile games, fully priced titles, free-to-play games, whatever, anyone who has done that for a few years has come across one of these or multiple of these super frustrating moments where you think like, oh, I've spent so much time in this game and now I'm losing it all, right? And I mean, free to play is kind of designed like that, right? You are not supposed to quit, and this is why they make you kind of build up a huge pile of things in the game that you would lose if you stop playing. And that's why everyone wants to sell their account. I don't think that most people who are selling their accounts are doing that in order to make money. They're doing that because they don't want to have wasted all this time, right? And so now that whole thing brings us to kind of the blockchain world. And I mean, obviously, blockchain in gaming or blockchain gaming in general is not 10 times better than traditional gaming. Apparently, it's not like that because everybody would be playing blockchain games over traditional games, right? It's apparently only a little bit better, and I would actually claim it's better, even if some people don't view it like that. And there's also good reason why there's a bit of a backlash when like these huge publishers launch their NFT projects sometimes. But I think it's actually beneficial for gamers. And now, if we get to kind of applications, it's actually very simple, right? It could be very, very simple. So imagine you have any game that you like playing. I don't know. Let's imagine you have FUT cards, right? You play FIFA and you play FUT, and you buy all these cards. And many people, I've never spent a lot of money in FIFA, but I know that a lot of people spend a lot of money on FUT cards, right? And that's not a free to play, right? You have spent like, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 euros or dollars on the game itself. And then now you're supposed to spend tens, hundreds, thousands of euros or dollars to buy FUT cards, right? And well, what do you have if you have FUT cards? You have something on your account that you can play with, right? That's it. But you don't own them. You can't do anything with them. You can't cash out on them, right? You can't get super lucky, open a pack and get something that's super valuable and then sell that for real money that you've spent to get it, right? All you can do is basically sell it for, I don't know, coins, credits, whatever it's called in FUT actually, and buy more stuff, right? Buy more of the same stuff. And but you're probably done investing into this particular game, specifically into this particular season of the game with FIFA, right? Because you've bought FIFA 22, and now you're done spending on this. You don't want to buy more packs. You have your team, whatever, and now you would like, if you get a new pack, you would like to cash in on that, right? But you can't. So all you can get is your credits, and then you can't spend them in the next year of the game. You can only spend them in FIFA 22 or whatever, right? And that's very frustrating again. So imagine those FUT packs and those FUT cards were NFTs. So you could actually choose what you do with them, right? You could sell an unopened pack, just like you can sell an unopened pack of baseball cards or physical baseball cards, right? And some of these packs actually become super valuable over time, just like, I don't know, old Pokemon cards are like, if you have an unopened pack from the first edition of Pokemon, right? That's like, I don't know how much that is, but it's a few thousands for sure, right? And so you can choose not to open it, right? And you can keep it forever until maybe someone wants to open it and see what's inside, right? or you can open it up and you can get the cards, right? And it's you who can choose. It's just like in the physical world. I used to play a lot of Magic the Gathering, right? And it's like you wouldn't think that it can be any different in the virtual world, but it actually is. So that's what NFTs enable. It feels they kind of resemble what you have in the physical world, um, with all these things that you can have in games. And it doesn't really matter what it is, right? So actually, the most lightweight way of possibly integrating blockchain or NFTs in a game would actually be that you just have the game, right? And then you have a particular item, like maybe an FUT pack, and then there's a button on this pack that says get as NFT or redeem as NFT, right? And then you would link your blockchain account and you would get this as an NFT. And so long as this NFT remains on your blockchain account, you can use this thing in the game. And as soon as you transfer it away from your blockchain account, for instance, because you've sold it on the market, it's not visible in your game anymore, right? So that would be the most lightweight way of integrating something like NFTs into kind of a traditional game. The game itself remains entirely unchanged. It's the same game. Obviously, the economics of the game and of these cards or packs or whatever it is in the game, that would have to be slightly different once they're fully tradable, right? But the game itself, the gameplay itself, that could remain entirely untouched. So that is like I said, I think that this could, or I hope this might inspire some people to actually try something like this out. It's not very kind of super involved in terms of technical integration or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. I think at the very beginning, there's the game industry is kind of has always been kind of weird and iffy with when it comes to a gamer or consumer being able to make money off things, right? Because you mentioned the multi-account thing. It felt like an unofficial rule. Maybe they have it legally marked somewhere where you can't do that, but it feels kind of odd. It's like if you're making a multiple account, you worked to a certain extent to put time into it and make something of value for someone else who wants to buy it. Isn't that just between a consumer transaction, right? It's also kind of harks back to a lot that's GameStop right there, right? Selling used games, right? There was always controversy with the original publisher saying that why they shouldn't be able to buy the game and be able to buy used games and sell it at a higher mark. But that's their whole game business.
Yeah.
And so I think there's always been this odd relationship with game developers and publishers, I guess, and then the gamer and consumer. Because even now, streaming is such a huge business, and a lot of these times it's commentary over game developers' work, right? And it's not such a big deal right now because it I think if anything it transcended beyond conversation. It's like it's too big of a business to outlaw streaming for games, and I think there's just too much of a demand for it, obviously. So we're past
that point. It's a huge
acquisition
channel, right? For gamers.
Exactly. But like it's always been every step of the way. I've always felt like if there's ever a chance for us to monetize, it becomes like a question of ethics, and it becomes unlawful, right? Unofficially, right? There obviously aren't rules. So I think this is where blockchain NFT is kind of hitting that first level of resistance. It's like, even in the commentary right now where we're live, there's a lot of people kind of talking about, it's a game, you're not supposed to make money off it. And even as a game developer, I understand it to a degree, but we're just in a world where if there's a demand and people see things, it's a free market, right? And even though we don't know where this can lead to, I don't think it's bad, but it allows people to possibly make a living past the point of purchasing the product, right? Side money, but a lot of people, become celebrities online, or you have that NFT that is so valuable that the whole world wants it, right? And you can sell it at an excel. I mean, to me, that sounds kind of cool, right? And if anything, yeah, maybe none of that goes back to the developer, the original developer publisher, but it, I think, helps in other ways that we cannot completely map out yet. Maybe through marketing, people are still talking about it, right? If we just fast forward 10 years from now, just think of Ready Player One. There's a product in the game that's something hunting, Easter egg hunting. I think these are gameplay and game design possibilities that suddenly it feels important to have a single item or a collection of items, right?
Yeah, I mean, I hope we're not 10 years away from Ready Player One yet.
Probably sooner.
But I mean, there have been attempts, right, to do that. And I remember very vividly when Blizzard launched the in-game marketplace for Diablo 3 when it launched, right? And that was cool. I really liked that. I really liked the possibility of being able to grind for something, to grind for gold, and be able to flip that for real money. That was awesome, right? They obviously didn't get the balancing of that right. So that's hard, right? To be very honest, that's hard. So this is also why this is taking so long, right? So and then instead of just like fixing the actual problems, they just shut it down entirely, which was yeah, which was sad, right? But there was one of the very few attempts, as you said, to where someone tried to allow folks to officially make money out of it, right? Obviously, unofficially, there's always been this huge gray market, but I really don't get it, right? Why would you not want to make money? I'm not saying making money in terms of make a living necessarily, right? I'm just saying that why wouldn't you try to get something back of the huge investment that you've made, both time and money wise, into a game, right?
Yep.
And you can view it like, okay, it should be fun, but if I grow, let's say, tomatoes on my balcony or in my garden, right? And so I put a lot of work into that, and I probably put some money into that for buying seeds and growing them, right? And then I plant my tomatoes. You can imagine anything else but tomatoes.
Yeah.
And then it's summertime, and I suddenly have like hundreds of kilos of tomatoes, right? What do I do with them? I can like give them away for free, but I could also try and sell them on the market, right? I could just go to a market and sell them, and maybe I make a little bit of money. I probably won't be a net positive, or I won't have a good hourly rate on the time and money that I invested in, right? But I will make some extra. And I think that this is like a super satisfying thing if you are able to sell the few tomatoes that you grew, because it's like somebody else wants this, right? That's a great feeling. And maybe people will say, hey, dude, these are the best tomatoes that I've ever had, whatever, right? And that's like super satisfying. And you put all this time and sweat and money into it, and now you've got somebody, you get this kind of positive reinforcement, right? And how about you can do that with games? I mean, it's probably your hobby. You're probably doing that because it's fun, right? But why not be able to get some of your investments back, some of your investment backs? Like very likely, it's going to be a very bad hourly rate, very likely going to be a net negative, but hey, right now you're a net negative on any game that you play, right? So you will be spending more money than you're getting back, most likely in the long run, right? Yeah, so you will get some money back, but what are you going to do with that money as a gamer, right? It's very unlikely that you're going to buy dinner, right? Maybe you will, but it's very much more likely that you're going to just buy new stuff in another game, because that's what gamers do, right? We do that all the time. We exchange money for fun things, right? We do that all the time. And so I'm not surprised if gamers just go, oh yeah, cool, I've got $50 out of this game, and now I spent that on that game, right? And it just makes the whole experience less frustrating, because you get to keep certain things, and it's kind of like it feels fairer to me, at least.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were really in the early stages of this, and it's kind of, making an effort to centralize where you are able to share content between games. I mean, we're slowly kind of talking about the metaverse, and it's the theme of the decade, right? I mean, Facebook believes in it so much that they renamed their company to the Meta before really kind of getting a consensus from consumers. But the idea eventually is that we do have a shared universe. Maybe Microsoft has their own camp, mobile games, band together and have their own camp, and then Facebook having their own camp. But the idea is that you can start using these original content that you own, and be able to kind of share that across Halo or COD or whatever the thing is, right? Um, I think that metaverse and NFT and blockchain is kind of essential together to kind of make this work. But I completely agree with you. Like your analogy with the seed and the farmer, right? A seed seller. Uh, it's silly to think that you can't sell your tomatoes with any content that you eventually own. I mean, we do it all the time. You look around the house. If you want to give away or sell your furniture and just get rid of it, it's kind of saying that you can't do that.
Yeah, you
Right?
can, right? Why,
Yeah.
why, why, why would it, right?
Right. So but there's always been this weird relationship when it comes to at least game related stuff that I don't know where it's coming from, because it comes from both sides, right? The publishers sometimes feel kind of iffy about that, and then gamers themselves, right, feel kind of iffy about selling content that you own within the game. And I don't know, maybe at some point I'll do some research and dive deeper into it. But there's always been, at every new technology gate, there's always been, is that right? Is it ethical or whatever the point is? And but when it comes to physical things that we own, no one really talks about that. I mean, Facebook, we're talking about Meta. I mean, they have a marketplace in their little website that allows people to barter, essentially, right? Um, so we're just trying to take that kind of discovery into games officially, and now we have a way to do it digitally that is exciting. Um, I would like to kind of talk about more of your thoughts about the big publishers, and this is coming from Resistance. We hear Ubisoft, a
Yeah.
little bit of Microsoft. There's some pushback from the internal devs, right? Especially the designers. They're getting bad flashback about downloadable content and loot boxes, and then their idea is like, no, we're just squeezing too much out of the consumer. I think in the end, it's still a choice. But what are your thoughts about that? Of what's transpiring? Is it just confusion about the technology, or is it really their viewpoints are somewhat valid but not completely proven yet?
I think there's a huge difference between large publishers who have franchises that have lasted for a really long time with like diehard fans who have played every single game of the franchise for 10, 15 years, right? And now they're being exposed to something like a new technology, but it feels like it's the same old stuff. It's just that it's a different shiny way of selling it,
Yeah.
right? So I totally understand that there's backlash, and I gotta say I'm not unhappy about this because it shouldn't be that easy. It
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
shouldn't,
Yeah.
right?
Gotta
They
earn it.
should be putting more thinking into this, and so I think that the large publishers they're kind of some of them are still relaxed or they think it's not going to be a thing, it's kind of a fad and it's going to go away, right? Some others are actually really really bullish on it, and we talk to publishers a lot, right? To small indie studios, to mid-sized publishers, but also to really large publishers, and we kind of also see their thoughts on these things, right? There's a lot of uncertainty obviously on a kind of legal regulatory side around this. There's a lot of uncertainty about the technological kind of question, which blockchain to use. Will this blockchain still be around? Am I destroying the planet by issuing NFTs on Ethereum? And these kinds of questions, right? So I totally understand that it's really, really hard for any large publisher with kind of really valuable IP to make a huge bet on NFTs or blockchain, right? This is kind of their typical innovator's dilemma kind of thing, right? They have a lot to lose because effectively, I mean, obviously, great big games, great game franchises they're money printing machines, right?
Yeah.
You can just do the next whatever Assassin's Creed, I don't know, COD, right? And you auto make money. I mean,
Yeah.
it should be an okay game, but it's not like it has to be a lot of effort. It doesn't have to be super well designed. Obviously, if you really screw it up, then you might not sell on the next one or on the next one or on the next one, right? But you look at PS and FIFA, right? They've been selling every single year, whether it's a big change, a big new thing or whatever, or it just feels like, oh, they could have actually patched the last version before that, right? And so they have a lot to lose with specifically their grand IPs, and it's I can totally understand them being very cautious about this. I would actually welcome if they would at least try, or at least like do a little test, but that's apparently not in their focus, right? So yeah, they're currently being disrupted, and we got to say some of these game projects from the blockchain gaming space, like Decentraland, the Sandbox, Axie Infinity, and some others, they've been raising a lot of money, right? So they can actually, from at least a pure monetary cash flow perspective, they're able to compete with the really big ones. Maybe not the Microsofts and Sonys of this world, but they are effectively billion-dollar companies now, right? So they will be able to build a lot of things, a lot of cool gameplay, a lot of great franchises, a lot of great IP, great experiences, and so on, and an awesome ecosystem, because they simply got so much money. They can buy studios, right? And even other like non-gaming crypto projects have started buying up studios to build games, right? For their ecosystem, and I think that's very, very interesting, because right now I think that most people think, yeah, okay, as long as the large publishers, so long as they don't jump on that train, nothing real is going to happen. Like not a lot of games are going to appear, and the games aren't going to be great. But I think they actually might get like disrupted, just as 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I don't know, when free to play came up, some of these old school publishers actually got disrupted by that, and they didn't think it would be that much of a thing as it is right now.
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing that disruption happening right now with this, and I think any resistance mostly, yes, there's a game developer side, but if there's a consumer side, I think people generally are kind of waiting to see, and it's more of like they're not quite understanding it yet, right? But for me, the easiest way for me to kind of approach this subject has always been, this is the decade of the metaverse. So whatever happens from this, I do feel like, I had a discussion with my kind of like my unofficial co-host a few weeks back, and we were talking about like all the crazy acquisitions that's been happening the past month with Microsoft buying Activision, Sony buying Bungie, right? They're fattening their portfolio up, right? And I do see at least this trend towards these big mega franchises, like you said, Assassin's Creed, all these games that every year they just release something competent, right? They'll make bang bucks, right? For no effort at all. And I'm definitely a huge supporter for these franchises to just kind of go in the steps of what Warzone is doing, right? Where it's just patches that you install, and the way they make money, the highest earning games nowadays earn money through just in-game content now, right? It's not selling the original anymore. It's like it's about free to play essentially, right? So I kind of want to do away sequels from this point on. I think people generally just want to download the new thing. Once they own it, and they get the updates, and then be a little, the publishers and developers have to be a little smarter about how to kind of continue that, because not only that, I think it's good for the consumers, but for the developers. We've been in the industry for a long time, to kind of hold our breath before a game release, right, is a very scary thing. I much rather have this gravy train going and then be creative with the in-game content. We have these audience, because every time you come out with a sequel, you're wiping the slate clean again, all right, and you're hoping a percentage of the last game is coming back, right? It's a very risky business proposition. I mean, movies do it really well, obviously, but there's a reason why Marvel is kind of looked at as this kind of like new age way of doing movies. I mean, they string 25 films, and they are able to carry over that audience because you don't want to miss a piece of the puzzle, right? Because you might walk into Spider-Man and not know you'd be left out. So with that, that continuation of once you build a base, you're just building that base and having something like this technology that allows the consumers to be empowered with original content, I think just adds on to the fun, right? Um, and I do agree with you that we're it's a good thing that people are fighting against it because we do need to kind of fireproof this a bit before the masses, right? Because it's a good way to make side money, but it's also a good way to lose some side money too, right? If you're being if people are being
Yeah.
swindling and snaky about it, but like I think overall it's a good approach to what is next, and I think especially with this generation where more and more people are at least the last 2 years are getting into stocks more, right, because of the pandemic, and especially remote working now. People are looking at ways to maximize their flexibility to work, right? So if there's a way to earn while you play, which is kind of like what we're doing right now. To me, it's an extension of this streaming thing where
Yeah.
people are watching people stream. It's like, all right, maybe you can't build an audience, but at least you can be really good at building value of this particular product in the game. And then you can take that to somewhere where someone can buy it, right? So I think it's actually more approachable for regular consumers and not have to be some kind of online influencer to make money off it.
Yeah, I mean, there's two thoughts that I have on my mind about what you said. One is going backwards. Basically, is Twitch and streaming is such a weird thing that in the old world, in the old kind of commercial business world, Twitch couldn't happen, right? So what you watch this guy and you just send him money, although you don't have to, right? You don't have to pay those guys. You can watch them for free, but you still want to pay them. Are you stupid? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
what's going on, right? And to me, that was super fascinating to see how big that is and why, and how people actually want to support creators, right? If they like them, if they think they're cool, if they think they add value, right? It's this voluntary kind of thing. Obviously, that then other things got added, so that now you have to do that for status reasons and stuff. But the core is still the same. You don't have to support your creators, but you still do, right? And I think that's great. And a similar or a related thought is actually the other thing is kind of the emergence of new business models in gaming, right? As you said, maybe you want to just get the new thing, right? I like when I remember the old times when you were buying a game and unboxing it, right? That was a really cool feeling. But then again, this game had to be finished, right?
Yeah.
It had to be like really good because you couldn't patch it like every other day, right? Patching it
Right.
was a pain in the ass. If even possible, you could have like ROMs on Super Nintendo or whatever, right? They're like the game is there. If it doesn't work, if it's glitchy or buggy, then it will be buggy forever.
Yeah.
Um,
You have a
but
good
now,
coaster.
yeah, and now you do get these games that may be unfinished, right? But you don't have this unboxing effect anyway anymore, right? So it doesn't feel like you don't get nostalgic about, oh yeah, I still remember when I downloaded XYZ game, right? You don't remember these moments, right? You just let it download overnight and then the next day you can actually play it, which I actually find amazingly inconvenient for like new tech. Anyway, but what's cool about NFTs is that NFTs have this concept of royalties, right? So whenever you can set a royalty fee for any future transfer for every future marketplace trade of an item of your NFTs, right? And that's lifetime, right? And that's really cool, because this to me aligns incentives between creators and consumers the best, right? It means that so long as you produce interesting use cases for these items, meaning interesting content, people will be trading those things because there's going to be an ongoing demand for them, right? And so long as people are interested in those, and there's demand for them, people will buy them, and you will have a stream of income, right? As soon as you stop producing anything that's of interest, or you screw up your economy because you've basically just created too many of these things, price will go down, nobody will buy them anymore, and you will not be making money off of that, right? And I think that's such a great concept that we haven't seen um, unveil yet in a way that is really great, and that we could use as a great example of, yeah, this is how it's supposed to work. But I think that this has a lot of potential of just running things the right way.
So we're seeing like this as part of this rise, and kind of the spread of it to the general public. A lot of celebrities, sports athletes especially, right, are selling their NFTs, cards, attire, whatever. What is the connection there? Possibly, right? If they have their digital asset, do you see some kind of brand sponsorship with these kind of one of a kind collection through gaming, or is it gonna be always these different avenues of how NFT is used, right? How practical it is to cross pollinate these different things. Um,
I think that's going to happen a lot, but it's not a necessity, right?
mhm.
So you can tell that many of these large NFT projects, like Bored Apes, they're looking to make games now, right?
Yeah.
And that's might be a cool thing, but they obviously don't know anything about making games, at
Yep.
least not on paper, right? So they have a lot of money, so they can buy studios. Does that guarantee that they will be making good games? Of course not, right? So it's not that easy, right? Um, will people play that just for the fun of it? I don't know, right? Because it depends on whether it's going to be a good game or not. But like for sure, people owning a Bored Ape will at least try that. But that's just 10,000 people. Maybe count all the other apes in, right? That's a few tens of thousands of people. But that's not a huge user base for a game, obviously, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know how that's going to work out, and it's not really necessary. I think that we have so much development ahead of us for the next few years that this is not, to me, that's not a priority. That you have kind of XYZ arbitrary NFTs that may be represented by I don't know whom, right? Or created by I don't know whom, and that these are usable in the games. Whatever. Really, there's more exciting stuff lying right ahead of us, where we could have better applications, and all the while better content, better games, rather than thinking about these kinds of things. That's not really not a priority for me.
Yeah, I just keep going back to Ready Player One when NFT and items get so valuable that corporations send their employees to these virtual worlds to collect them, uh, because then it becomes a commodity, right? It's a thing of value. Anything of a thing of value, there's going to be a consumer level of competition, and then there's going to be a corporate level of competition. And to me, it's all, to me as a game developer, it's just another option, right? You don't have to use it if you don't like it, but it's there. And if you want to be in kind of like the trend, there's a lot of advantages to kind of learn it and figure it out and find some fun use scenario to play with it within your ecosystem. I don't think that's a bad thing. Like it's just a lot of people I feel who get scared of it, feel suddenly that it's going to be an overnight change, which is not, or 100% of games is going to slowly do this, which probably won't happen. But It's just a new introduction of here's a type of game, right?
Well, maybe it will happen at some point, right? That there's like a tie-in for the things that you can find, make, earn, whatever in the game. That's in a way blockchain based or an NFT or whatever. But that's exactly the discussion that I've had with people from Unity. That I think that Unity is a toolbox, right?
Yeah.
And what they typically do is that they put in the toolbox whatever is necessary to build great games, right? So if it's 2D games, then there's an option for that. If it's 3D games, it's that. If it's mobile, if it's web, if it's blah blah blah, then there's always a possibility, right? You can make all kinds of games with Unity. Why can't you make blockchain games, right? They don't need to be like very opinionated about this, right? They just offer this tool. Why wouldn't they? Because they offer all kinds of tools, right? And this is something that they're being very very cautious about blockchain, right? This is a stance that I really don't understand from their point of view, because why not, right? And right now that's an option, and in the end, consumers will make choices. Consumers always do, right? And if consumers don't think that this will offer or the blockchain offers benefits, then they won't do that at scale. They won't be playing these games. These games need to be better. They need to be at least as good, plus a little bit better, for them, for the mass market, for the majority of the people to actually adopt them, to actually want to play them, right? And right now, many of these games are basically constructed around actually being able to make a ton of money, right? And if it all goes right, and if you're super early, then you can actually do make a lot of money. But that's obviously not sustainable, because you can't have everyone be making money, right? So
Yeah.
essentially, at some point, it's got to be about the fun and people who want to put in money into the game simply for like exchanging money for fun, just like people exchange money for fun all the time.
Yeah, exchanging money for fun, and there's it's just like anything. There's competition, so there's gonna be really good people that is able to create value or find something of value and sell it, and then other people who are just like you said, just bartering. And there might be people who are not even selling; they're just collecting. We know a lot of friends. It's just like old baseball cards, right? People trade and keep it for long periods of time, and maybe later they sell it, but it's not a very not everyone's in there with the very business mindset about like this is my day job for 3 hours a day. It's just like anything. It's just a fun little thing that is possibly gonna change everything. Like you said, like it's gonna start small. I think a lot of games, obviously, these big and small players are there, publisher wise, looking at applications of this. They're probably studying the crap out of this and seeing how it applies to their current but future slate of games. And I will say too, like why it's so big, because it's not just the technology was created outside of games, right? And now we're applying that technology into games. So there's a lot of other sectors that are using this and pushing it a lot further, right? I do see at some point that because the game ecosystem, like we've been so good about monetizing, right? That eventually game design is going to be king in terms of how everyday consumers are involved, right? I do think the game industry will end up being first out of all the tech companies and all these other people experimenting it, because you know it playing a game had the idea of what games are is just transcended what we used to be, where we're just playing in our living room by ourselves on our Nintendo, right? Everything is gamified in some way. I was complaining the other day how Facebook isn't fun anymore, right? And their website design is, they completely forgot their game loop, right? It used to be a very addictive application, very simply for people to come on and check people. And I was one of those people that was refreshing every time for updates, but it's gotten so cluttered, right? and I joke about this, but it's true. It's like they just need a game designer to go back in there and take all the crap out and make it fun again. So like what we do, we're already seeing game developers in these different tech companies doing non-traditional game stuff, but applying the knowledge. So I see a lot of future in NFT and games and how we're pushing that. I wouldn't be surprised that streamers are going to be the first ones within the game sector that makes that that huge step of really pushing NFT, right? Where it's, to me, it's kind of like they're the middle ground of a celebrity, but also kind of pushing the game thing as a game developer, right? Not really game developers, but the marketing thing. They're kind of like in the middle ground right there. So we can talk for days. We can talk for 8 more hours, but we are at that 1 hour mark. I want to thank you, Adrian, for coming on. It's been a subject that I've been wanting to talk to you. It's been brewing the last year and a half. And I was one of those people, what is this crap? Right? Like, it is definitely one of those things that even if you agree or disagree, you should understand because it's here to stay. It's past the point of just being, something momentary, right? It is very integrated in our future lives here. So I want to thank you for coming on. This is the part where I do shut up, hand over to you the mic so that you can give attention to, promote anything that you want to talk about.
Yeah, first of all, thanks a lot for having me and for offering me a little bit of a stage to talk about this whole NFT topic. And as you might have heard, like we have a very balanced, or I have a very balanced kind of opinion on this, right? I obviously personally am very bullish on NFTs and blockchain because I think it just really helps. And to me, it feels, after playing so many blockchain games, playing the first game that was like traditional again felt like, okay, why would I play that? Right? I'm basically just putting all my time in here and not getting anything out. In any case, thanks for having me, and thanks a lot for watching this. If you want to check out how we have integrated blockchain into the gaming space, check out womplay.io, womplay.io. It's kind of the approach where you can just do whatever you used to do. You just play the games that you know or like. You just have to download them through our website, but you're able to get your first crypto or your first NFTs without actually having to buy them, right? So you can experience if NFTs are for you, and if that's something that you like or not, and if that produces any value for you, right? And I think that OnePlay is actually one of the, or probably the lowest risk way of exploring the blockchain and NFT space from a gaming angle, without like steep learning curves, without having to understand what a blockchain is, how it works, and without spending a ton of money on buying your stuff, right? So I think that checking this out is a good thing, and let us know what your feedback is. Let us know what we could improve to make it fairer, to make it more transparent, or to make it better usable, specifically for people who just like playing games without like wanting to make a lot of money, but it's just a little nice add-on on top of just playing the games that you like. We have really great game titles on there. So also like AA, AAA, free-to-play games with hundreds of millions of downloads. So we know that people are playing them even without any blockchain aspect, right? But we do add that to many of our games. We do add NFTs. You can just collect them. You can sell them on a marketplace. You can make some more crypto. So check it out, and I'd be really happy to hear from people like how they fare, what it's like, and if you like it.
Right, all right. Well, thank you, Adrian. Awesome stuff. All links in the description as always for those listening and watching. It's going to be in the description. But I want to thank you for coming on to the show. I want to thank for all those live chatters helping me kind of shape and answer. Ask the next questions. So that's pretty much it. See you guys every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. But Adrian, especially you, man, you are not the last, but one of the first people that I want to talk to on this subject. I think it really is a key factor to any game developers out there to understand and possibly, consider as part of their game design. It is the way. Right? I just watched the whole Boba Fett series, so it's hard to shake that off. But I want to thank you, Adrian. As always, welcome back anytime.